This is Meg Remy from US Girls, and these are records in my life.
Thank you again so much for being on Records in My Life.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, and congratulations, your record Scratch It just dropped a couple of weeks ago. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a bit about it? You had some really interesting people I was reading when I was doing my research on the record, like Jack Lawrence and Charlie McCoy and your partner, obviously. And can you get into it a bit?
Yeah, the record kind of came about. I had a festival to play in Arkansas in 2024 that I had agreed to way in advance, and then, it comes time to actually book the travel, and it was extremely cost prohibitive and difficult to get to Arkansas from Toronto.
Huh.
So the band that I was playing with at the time, touring the Bless This Mess album from up here, I wasn't able to get them down. So I had a contract. I had agreed to do this festival. So I looked at a map and was like, who do I know around Arkansas? And I remembered this person, Dillon Watson, that I had met years and years ago, who lived in Nashville. He had stayed at my house. He'd come through town playing with my friend Jack Name, and they needed a place to stay and stayed at our house. And Dylan and I really hit it off, and I remembered him. And so I sent him an email and said, "Can you put a band together for me?" And he said, "Sure." And he put together this great band, and we did the show. And that night, we were sitting around the hotel bar just kind of talking about making records. And they were really shocked to find out I'd never tracked to, big tape before. And they were like, "Oh, you should do it. You love it. And, you worked on four tracks. You kind of understand the concept." And so we agreed right then and there, like, I'll come to Nashville and we'll do a record. So that was April 2024. And we recorded it in August. Between 5 days in August and 5 days in September, we recorded it and mixed it. So it was all done in 10 days. And it was kind of like a dream scenario on all fronts, not just the personnel, but working so swiftly and really just doing it, not being too precious, not like really trying to kind of strangle it and perfect it, just really going for it. And yeah, it came out. I'm really pleased with how it came out. I feel like I learned a lot. And yeah, I mean, working with someone like Jack Lawrence it's kind of changed my life, particularly, singing with him and singing with such a singer-sensitive bass player, I guess you would say.
And how did I know that Charlie McCoy was on and
Yeah,
a legend, right? Because he's played with like Elvis,
crazy.
Dylan.
Yeah, I didn't even know he existed. Like I knew him, but I didn't know him by name or in that he was the same person who's on all of these tunes. And when I said to Dylan, I was like, I think I really want to have a harmonica, as a soloist on the record. I think that'd be really great. And it would fit the palette for what we're doing and would be totally unexpected. I don't think anyone would expect a harmonica on a US Girls record. So he was like, I know the guy. And he had met Charlie McCoy once at a movie theater he worked at, that Dylan worked at. Charlie had come in and he had said, like, Mr. McCoy, I'm a big fan. And so Charlie had given him his business card all those years ago, and Dylan had never capitalized on it. So he called the number on it and said, "Charlie, Mr. McCoy, I met you once, and would you want to do this session?" And he said, "Sure." And he came in, and it was incredible. It was just, I mean, working with elders is always such a learning experience. You really kind of have to lay down your project to them and
Right.
and learn. And it was wild to just, it was similar to like I had a Jake Clemens from the E Street Band
Sure.
on Heavy Light. He came in and did a sax solo. And it was that same thing of when he started playing, it's like, oh, that's the sound of rock and roll. Like
Mm.
that's it. And it was same with Charlie. It was like, that's that classic sound that I think one can only create w when they have like immense soul, right? And the experience doesn't, the experience obviously helps, but it was wild hearing his harmonica kind of start up while we're in the control room and just, yeah, it was a really amazing experience.
It was probably I'm assuming it was pretty magical, like right down there on song like Writers Row, right? I mean, like there's so many, right? The history and the I mean, it's incredible, right? How all the great music came from that. You know what I mean? Rock and roll was like came from that area essentially, from the
For
30s, whatever,
sure.
40s.
Yeah, it was a real confidence boost for me, for sure, to just be like, wow, I have a music career. Like it's real and it's led me to here and it's not out of place that I'm here. I didn't like pay to get here or something. Like I've kind of done the work and uh it was very eye-opening for me as an artist and feels like okay, I can got like 10 at least 10 more years in me, right?
I'm sure a few more. You're pretty young, but I wanted to ask you about. Thank you again for being on Records of My Life. The show is
Yeah.
about you, the artist, and the records that continue to inspire you. I was reading a bit growing up. You were listening. Your mom played you some interesting records and bands. Can you give me a couple of records that really kind of hit home and inspired you to start playing?
Yeah, I mean, with my parents, it was really more than records, it was the radio, and it was songs. They were so song based. I think from growing up in the era of 45s, but then just the radio being the stereo and living in a suburban culture where you're in the car so much. So a lot was that I got from my mom was how songs are the tr soundtrack to your life. A song would come up and she'd always want to tell me where she was at that time in her life when the song was popular and who she was dating and what happened on the thing and
Great.
so that kind of got me on the track of that when a song resonates with you that it you kind of own it then and it becomes yours and that's something that's kind of what's great about what artists do is they're constantly giving gifts that people can reflect themselves off of these mirrors. So with my mom it was tons of my mom was born in Gary, Indiana, so it's like Motown, like all Motown. Just she was obsessed. She saw the Temptations play. She saw tons of those groups in Chicago at the Medina Temple. She would always go on dates and stuff up to do that. So a lot of her was Motown. And with my dad, it was a lot of the kind of classic stuff. Bruce Springsteen's a huge one. I remember the when Bruce Springsteen and Billy Joel's greatest hits came out was kind of like when CDs were really becoming a thing, I feel like, and going and getting those and I love greatest hits collections now because of that. I think because I am more of a song-based person than even an album as a whole kind of person. So I listened to the Billy Joel and Springsteen box sets, probably till they didn't play anymore, the CDs, and devoured the little booklets. And, you know, a lot of emphasis in my family was put on lyrics, like lyrics really being important. Lyrics can change people, lyrics can change countries, lyrics can change cultures. So, yeah, Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen, and then a big one was Don McLean's American Pie, like that song and going through each thing and my parents telling me what each reference meant because when that song was big there was this program on in Chicago that went through. I think the program ended up getting syndicated, but it was the DJ going through and playing it and stopping it and saying what each thing was. Oh, the day the music died, that's when Buddy Holly's in the Big Bopper died. Like all that. And I remember being obsessed with that as a kid of how fun that was to break apart that puzzle and that a lyricist could find a way to find different words to explain an event that everybody knows about and make it kind of then yeah, their own telling of the event.
It's really interesting how music can really do that because it's like you hear a song, right? And right away it thinks, it makes you think of a time and a place, right? You can go right back to your childhood or whatever. You can go back to like, yeah, and that's the beauty of like, and did your mom, was it your mom or dad were they was so they weren't into punk rock at all? Because I was
No, no. I mean, my mom was terrified. She was terrified when I got into punk. She was not pleased
that's it.
about
It's
it.
funny. It's interesting.
Oh no, I came into punk totally on my own, like through getting into first kind of like rap rock and new metal, getting into that. Like, so I went to Catholic school from first grade to fifth grade, and then in sixth grade, I convinced my mom to let me go to the public school, of which I only went for 1 year because she then yanked me out of it because the year I went bad, you know. But I like got in with the kids that I really wanted to be in with, who were like music kids. Because I had two older brothers, so I was always taking their CDs. So going into that school, I was super into the Doors and Grateful Dead and stuff like that. So as soon as I got into the school, it's like, where's the kids with the tie-dye shirts? You know, just like met them, and then they were also into all this, I don't know, Bush and kind of the stuff of that time, but they got me like I got really into Corn at that time and 311. I won tickets to see 311 on the radio and went and saw them at the Rosemont Horizon, and through that just got in with a group of kids that then were in bands and got my first boyfriend. His name was Bill, and he was in like a hardcore band. So I started listening to what he was listening to, and then he was the one who told me like you should listen to Bikini Kill. And then it was like just and as soon as that happened, then I started getting into zines and mail order and like mixtapes and going to Chicago to see shows, and it just kind of exploded.
I know Chicago had such a great, rich scene, like those, like the early, like Steve Albini days, like the mathy punk and all this stuff. Was such a great, great time for music.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to
So,
shows at the Fireside Bowl, which was a bowling alley that
right.
also had shows, and they would do all ages early shows and then 21 up later shows. So, I mean, I saw everyone there. I even saw like Sky Saxon's The Seeds. You know what I mean? Like when he was like worshiping dogs or whatever, like crazy, like just because I would go to any show, or I started being with hanging out with older people in the city who are like, "You going to the Seed show?" I'm like, "Totally, I guess so." You know?
So you're on two great Royal Mountain in Canada, fantastic label. For
Mhm.
AD, I just wanted to ask you about that because that has such a long and rich history from like Bauhaus to the Pixies to modern day like Deer Hunter. And can you give me a couple of records off the label, which you really dig or really inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because I didn't know anything about 4AD when I started
That's
working with
amazing.
them. It was not a label that landed on me. I don't, because labels don't, again, I'm a song-based person. So labels, I don't really ever look at labels. It doesn't. So, I met someone from 4AD and they gave me their business card and I was like, okay, see you later. And I didn't write them till many years later when had a batch of songs that I was thought, oh, maybe someone would give me money for these, like, I don't know. And I told my husband, I met someone from some label called 4AD once. He was like, write them now. That was how I found out. And so I've subsequently got more into their stuff, but I'd say it's more of the newer records that have really landed on me. Like I love Jenny Hval. I think she's just fabulous, and I've been following her for a long time. And obviously, Aldous Harding is just really a pretty special artist, kind of yeah, there's not really anyone like her. So her records I've have really enjoyed.
So I was gonna just back to the Chicago days. I was gonna ask, and it's a Canadian and an American question since we've both holidays, which we kind of celebrate, but we don't celebrate. But what favorite Chicago band that springs to your mind from?
Coughs. They were a local band that they put out maybe one or two records on Load Records at a point, but they were just a local band. They had a big band. They had two drummers that played like on oil tins and scrap metal, a bass player, a guitarist, a saxophonist. People switch in the band switch songs singing. They were wild. It was one of the wildest things I'd ever seen. And became friends with those people and they taught me about a ton of music. So that was a band that I religiously went and saw anytime that they were playing.
Favorite Canadian band?
Tragically Hip, hands down. But one of the best lyricists, you
That's
know.
you didn't even hesitate. That's amazing.
No.
As well, I wanted to ask you, this is a bit of a tricky question, but you're a published writer, novelist, essayist. And this is kind of a hard question. I apologize,
Mm,
but I'm always
mm.
interested in soundtracks. And we asked this a question. What book that was adapted to screen, in your opinion, has the best soundtrack?
Oh, Lord.
I know it's a
Probably, probably Forrest Gump or something. Honestly, that affected me the most. Yeah, I mean, probably Forrest Gump.
What's a recent discovery for you? It can be a new artist or an older artist that we should all check out, a new record
Mm,
or
well,
new
there's a
discovery.
record. Yeah, there's a record that came out this past year that's well, it's hard to say. They're not really n new to me, but it's a new group. Uh, Lightman and Lightman is the names, and they're these twin sisters from Canada originally, and they moved to Los Angeles, and they made this record called Sister Smile. That is, I think it's somewhat of a concept album based on these two nuns. One of them being the nun that did like Dominique, Nick, 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 that hit song, like about what happened to her. Anyway, it's a really wild record. It's crazy, adventurous listen, and I haven't been able to take it off. That's a
So thank you again so much, Meg, for being on the show. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. On to the speed round. I don't know if you've seen the show. It's
Okay.
fun. Weed, water, wine to write or listen to your favorite record.
Oh God, all three. Definitely.
Good, good. Coffee with an artist, alive or dead.
Uh, Coffee with Samuel Beckett, probably.
Record of your high school years.
The record of my high school
First
years.
record you think of or you fell in love with.
Probably Sleater Kinney, Dig Me Out.
Words of wisdom for your fans and our audience.
Drink the water with the wine. Um, and yeah, try to love yourself.
The show is really nothing without you. So please like or subscribe or check out our Patreon. And this year we've switched it up and you can win a record just for leaving a comment. Thank you again and we love you. Peace.